The peace that scared the galaxy, the Galactic Council chamber, was crowded like never before. Planets from every corner of the galaxy had sent their envoys, their eyes full of confusion and fear, and the name on everyone's tongue was the same: Earth. Humans, the one species that had not fought a war in over 2 centuries, while thousands of other races fought endless battles over resources, power, pride, or revenge. The humans had remained quiet, completely still, watching, but never moving, and to most of the galaxy that was strange, even dangerous, because peace in this galaxy did not mean kindness. It meant waiting. It meant something was being hidden, something terrifying. In Io meant waiting. One corner of the chamber sat Chancellor Virax of the Zandari Empire, his voice loud and filled with disbelief as he slammed his hand on the table and shouted, "We must understand why the humans refuse war. No species forgets how to fight unless they are too weak or too powerful and weak. They are not." His words echoed through the room, and many heads nodded in agreement. There had always been rumors, stories about the last time humans went to war, but those tales were old, dusty, whispered in dark corners and quickly dismissed as myths. Still, even the most violent empires had never dared touch human space until now. The Craxus, a younger power, fast-growing and arrogant, believed the silence of humans meant fear. They had no patience for politics or stories, so they sent their fleet to a small human colony on the edge of neutral space. They expected resistance, expected a fight, maybe even hoped for one. Instead, they found farms, empty cities, silent power grids. Offline, no military, no weapons, no defense, just one message broadcast from the surface in every known language: return home. This is your only warning. The Craxus commander laughed at the message and ordered his soldiers to take the colony. He believed humans had gone soft, had lost their edge, but what followed was not war, not even resistance. It was absence, the kind that made even the bravest soldiers feel like prey. Patrols disappeared without a trace. Shadows moved where no life signs existed. Ships stopped responding without signs of battle, and the Craxus commander who had laughed the loudest was never found again. Back at the council chamber, tension grew. Every empire sent probes, fleets, spies into human space, and all of them came back with nothing but silence. No army, no weapons, no reaction. The humans did not even protest. At the council, they sent only one man, a single representative dressed in gray, calm, quiet, with no bodyguards and no ship orbiting the planet, just a transport and a voice that shook the room. He stood in the center of the chamber and spoke in a low, clear tone. "We do not go to war, not because we cannot, but because we remember what happened the last time. We did." That silence you hear, that peace you fear, is not weakness. It is control. It is memory. We chose not to fight, so we don't have to erase. Again, you may think we are bluffing. You may wish to test us again, but understand this: we no longer count victory in enemy dead. We count it in missing stars. The council fell into stunned silence as his words settled like a cold wind. Even the boldest generals found their tongues tied. The Craxus ambassador demanded answers, called it a trick, but deep down something inside him had already broken. A fear that could not be explained, a fear that came not from what the humans said, but what they didn't say. After the meeting, the human ambassador walked alone back to his ship. No guards, no fear, and when a curious aide from a distant world asked him why humans truly stopped fighting, he paused, looked at the stars above, and said, "Because we still remember the screams of the sky." And then he left, leaving behind only questions and silence. In the following days, debates exploded across the galaxy. Some still believed humans were bluffing. Others suggested their peaceful appearance was part of a longer strategy. But those who had seen the human eyes up close, those who had heard that calm voice, knew this was not a game. Something ancient lived beneath that silence, something powerful and old and patient. And so fear spread not through threat or fire, but through the absence of both. While the galaxy built more weapons, trained more armies, and prepared for more war, humans remained still, their worlds quiet, their systems untouched, and everyone watched and waited, afraid not of what humans might do, but of what might happen if they were ever truly provoked again. Peace had become their most terrifying weapon, and the galaxy could not understand it, but it could feel it, a quiet, cold fear that echoed louder than any gun, louder than any battle cry. It was the peace that scared the galaxy. The last human war, classified. Deep under the surface of Luna Earth's moon sat a hidden vault, cold, silent, untouched by time. Inside were layers of encrypted history sealed behind codes only the United Earth Authority could access, and today, for the first time in over 200 years, the Council's historian Coral Viric, a three-eyed scholar from the planet Caltrax, was granted entry. The vault door opened slowly with a deep metallic groan, revealing shelves of data crystals and a central black terminal that hummed softly as if aware of his presence. Coral stepped forward, his fingers trembling not from fear but from the weight of what he might uncover, because no one, not even the Council, had seen what lay inside the records of the last human war. He sat before the terminal and spoke the access phrase given by the Earth ambassador. There was no key, no scan, no passcode. Just a simple sentence: humans don't fight for victory, we fight to end all questions. The moment he said it, the room changed, lights dimmed, the temperature dropped slightly, and the terminal came alive, displaying a red blinking file with the label Project Void. Coral hesitated, then activated it. What followed made his heart's race and his breath slow. The screen showed a star map, flickering systems, highlighted in red, blinking rapidly, then turning black one after another. Over 50 solar systems vanished from the chart. Not bombed, not conquered, simply gone. No trace, no signal, no debris. It was as if they had never existed. The voice that followed was human, calm, and without emotion. This is an archived report on Operation Voidstorm, the final counterstrike in the sure human war, Earth year 2364. No classified clearance required, because there is no one left to keep secrets from. Coral leaned in, listening closely as the voice continued. The sure Dominion had attacked human colonies without warning, destroying 6 outer rim settlements and killing millions. Their fleets advanced quickly, overwhelming defenses. Their empire was known for war, and they believed humanity was just another target to be swallowed. But they were wrong. They awakened something buried deep within Earth. Not a weapon, not a technology, but a decision, a choice made long ago during the age of Earth's last great internal wars. Project Silence had begun as an experiment, genetic engineering training, deep psychological conditioning, humans shaped into perfect instruments of finality. Not soldiers, not assassins, but silencers, beings who did not win wars, but ended them completely. They were trained to operate outside morality, outside time, outside fear, and when Earth's leadership realized negotiation with the Sure was useless, they activated them for the first and last time in recorded history. The footage changed, showing grainy images of human ships entering Sure space, fast, silent, unstoppable. They moved like shadows between stars, bypassing fleets, ignoring defenses, targeting command centers, energy cores, entire planets disappearing in flashes of white light, followed by nothing. No heat, no radiation, no mass, just empty space. A fleet of 600 Sure warships engaged them. Only 2 managed to send partial distress calls before they too vanished without a trace, and within 72 hours the Sure Dominion no longer existed. Coral sat frozen, the images replaying in his mind, his scholarly brain refusing to accept what he had seen. The next segment showed the return of the human fleet, but they looked different, quiet and motionless, eyes empty. They docked without speaking, turned in their armor, and walked into deep cryo chambers underground, never to be awakened again. Earth declared a global cease of war immediately after all military projects, shut down, treaties signed with themselves. No celebration, no speeches, just silence. The human voice on the recording returned, saying the silencers were not killed, not destroyed. They are still here, sleeping beneath Earth's surface, sealed beneath codes only the highest Council members of Earth can unlock, and the only instruction left behind was this: do not wake them unless the stars themselves begin to scream. The screen faded to black, and Coral slowly rose from his chair, heart pounding. He had expected information tactics, maybe a forgotten weapon, but But what he had found was something else, something older and darker, and far beyond logic. Humans had not evolved past war out of kindness. They had evolved past it because they had built the perfect end to it. And now they feared themselves more than they feared any enemy. Exited the vault pale and silent. The guards outside didn't speak to him, and he didn't speak to them, because what was there to say? What language could describe a war so final? It erased the enemy from time itself. As he entered his ship and flew back to the council, he kept replaying one sentence in his head, the one I had said before shutting down. We didn't use a weapon, we used humans. The experiment that changed humanity long before the stars learned to fear Earth, before the council knew the meaning of true silence. Humanity stood at war with itself across continents, oceans, and skies. Nations fought until the very idea of peace became a myth. The Earth bled not because it was weak, but because it was full of questions. Each side believed they were right, and no one listened until the fires reached the sky, and the clouds turned black, and when the world stood on the edge of final extinction, a plan was born. Not to save lives, not to win battles, but to create a future where war itself would fear to return. They called it the Human Cognitive Weapon Program, though history would later name it something else, something darker. Project Silence. It was not born in bright labs or public halls. It was created in cold underground bunkers, led by thinkers who had lost families to bombs and generals who had seen too many children in body bags. They gathered the strongest minds, the most damaged souls, and the coldest logic, and they asked one terrible question: what if we could make a human who ends war not by fighting but by erasing the very reason for it? From that question came years of hidden science. They changed DNA, but not to make monsters. They didn't want rage or madness. They wanted precision discipline. They trained children in gravity fields, where time passed differently, exposed them to simulated deaths. Thousands of times broke and rebuilt their minds with virtual war and ancient philosophy, and when the first of them walked out of the chamber, the scientists knew something had changed. The child didn't blink, didn't shake, didn't smile. He simply asked, where is the conflict, and how do I end it? These beings were not machines. They were not emotionless robots, but they felt emotions like tools, using them only when necessary. Empathy could disarm a room, fear could freeze a fleet, calm could silence rebellion, and when needed they could remove a threat so completely that nothing remained, not a city, not a signal, not even memory. They did not enjoy violence, they simply accepted it as a step, and then removed the path entirely. They didn't think in battles, they thought in endings. The program was tested only once before the war with the Sure. And even that test was covered in secrets. A rogue Earth faction had tried to seize power, launching coordinated strikes across 10 regions. Within 12 hours, all the strikes stopped. Every leader involved was gone. The weapons vanished, the ships crashed in empty fields, and the world media simply reported a glitch in global systems. But behind the silence, the world governments met and made a vow these beings would be locked away, only called when the sky itself broke open. Decades passed and the world changed. Earth united slowly, not by love, but by fear of what they had created. Borders faded, not because people wanted peace, but because they knew what waited below. Cities grew over deep bunkers where the silencers slept not in cages but in peace. They had no need for orders, no hunger, no aging, only a single genetic trigger tied to Earth's highest authority, and a warning written in every language above the vault: do not wake them unless you are ready to bury stars. Children on Earth were taught history, but Project Silence was never mentioned, not in schools, not in books. Only the top command knew the truth, and they guarded it fiercely because it was not just a weapon. It was the last answer to every future question, the final stop for every threat. And as Earth entered the age of interstellar diplomacy, the memory of the program faded into myth until the day the Sure came and pushed humanity too far. The Council never saw what truly happened during that war, only the results, because by the time they looked, the Sure were gone and Earth had gone silent again. No celebration, no footage, no broadcasts. Just a quiet world returning to farming, art, and science. as if nothing had happened. And yet something had changed, because now the universe whispered of a human experiment that erased not enemies, but reality itself now, as the galaxy moved forward, confused and tense, trying to understand. Earth's calm, many still believed humans had become peaceful through time, healing, or wisdom, but they were wrong. Peace was not a gift, it was a shield, and behind that shield slept something born from pain, shaped by war, and trained not to win, but to finish the conversation forever. And though no empire dared speak of Project Silence out loud, many had started to study Earth's past closely, looking for the signs in culture, in old transmissions, in quiet, abandoned moons where strange signals still echoed, and in every archive. One message kept appearing again and again, in different forms, sometimes spoken, sometimes carved, sometimes just felt. You do not want to see what we become when we have no other choice. The first strike against Earth. The galaxy had grown uneasy watching Earth stay quiet after the Craxus incident. Some empires feared the silence, others mocked it, but all of them waited for a clear answer. None came. Earth did not retaliate, did not threaten, did not even explain what happened to the Craxus fleet. Their colony was re-established with quiet speed food. Transports returned, children went back to school, and the planet turned like nothing had happened. But the fear continued to grow, spreading through council meetings, secret alliances, and hushed military channels. Earth was hiding something powerful, and the unknown was more terrifying than any weapon ever built. For months, smaller factions kept their distance, but there are always those who believe they are smarter, faster, stronger. The Varnosk Syndicate, a cluster of independent warlords, known for mercenary raids and data theft, believed the humans were bluffing. They called the Craxus fools, claimed their ships had malfunctioned or their systems had collapsed internally, and decided to send a message of their own. They targeted Earth's outermost orbital station, a civilian hub floating between Mars and Jupiter, where scientists lived with families, children played in artificial parks, and diplomats moved between sectors without escort. The Varnock believed a quick attack would humiliate Earth and prove the silence was nothing but old fear dressed in mystery. They launched 6 small ships equipped with stealth drives and energy disruptors. Their orders were simple: board the station, cause chaos, leave a message, and disappear before Earth could react. What they didn't know was that Earth never stopped watching every ship near their space, every signal, every whisper. They had been waiting, not with anger, but with patience. As the Varnock ships approached the station, Earth did not raise shields or power weapons. The station did not lock down. There was no panic, but deep within the planet's core, a different kind of signal lit up. It didn't go out to the military, it didn't contact the fleet. Instead, it went down beneath the crust, down into a vault made of black stone and steel, a vault where time was held still and minds more dangerous than any fleet slept without dreams above. In space, the Varnock ships reached the station, disabled the outer comms, and began boarding. They found civilians running, hiding, some trying to fight back with tools and courage, but no soldiers, no resistance, just fear and confusion. The attackers moved quickly, planting explosives, stealing data, recording messages to spread through the galaxy. But before they could leave, their ships went dark. Engines, silent doors locked from the outside, and one by one they disappeared from the station's security feed. Not with a fight, not with screams, just silence. Their last recordings showed only static and shadows moving unnaturally fast, then nothing back. On Earth, in a deep hidden bunker, older than any modern city, an old man stood alone, his body thin, his hair silver, but his eyes brighter than any screen. He placed his hand on a smooth black surface and whispered a word. The system responded by scanning his voice and heart rate, confirming identity, activating protocol. Black confirmation received, the voice said in a flat tone, and in the silent halls below, frozen capsules began to glow softly. Across the council network, strange things began to happen. Satellites near Earth's orbit started broadcasting static, encrypted messages, jammed communications. Data turned to symbols no one could read. Council servers blinked with a phrase repeated over and over in every known language: the silence is Coming, the council panicked, trying to contact Earth, but no response. The ambassador who once warned them was nowhere to be found, and the fear that had once lived in rumors now stood in their control rooms, staring at them through blank screens. The Varnuk homeworld was the first to lose connection, then their outer colonies, then their command ships, all within 3 hours. Not a single explosion, not a single signal of distress. Just absence probes sent to investigate returned with empty readings. No life signs, no structures, only smooth black glass where cities used to be. The council called emergency sessions, screamed at each other, demanded answers, and tried to understand, but there was nothing left to analyze. The silence had already passed, and no one saw it coming. Some believed it was a weapon, others thought it was a curse. A few whispered that humanity had built something that understood war better than any species ever had, and had found the simplest solution to it: removal not of leaders or soldiers, but of everything that made war possible. And while the galaxy trembled, Earth continued its quiet rebuilding, fixing its orbital station, holding funerals for the civilians, lost not with fire or anger, but with soft voices and old songs, remembering and warning themselves of what happens when the silence is disturbed. And beneath their feet, in chambers hidden from the stars, the awakened walked slowly through halls lined with history, their eyes calm, their steps measured, their minds full of purpose, not rage. They did not ask why they had been woken. They already knew war had touched Earth, and now the silence would speak. The Craxus disappear. It began without light, without warning, without noise. The Craxus Empire, known for its brutality and endless hunger, was simply there one moment and the next. It was not 17 planets connected by wormholes, protected by defense stations filled with war fleets, and surrounded by sensor arrays designed to catch even the faintest sign of invasion. All of it gone without a single distress call, no explosion. No battles, just silence spreading like a black wave across star maps. And the Galactic Council panic turned into something deeper, something that lived in the stomach and refused to leave, because the galaxy had seen war. It had survived plagues, invasions, star collapses, but it had never seen vanishing. And now Craxus systems, once filled with life, now showed flat, empty readings, as if space itself had forgotten they ever existed. When probes were sent, they returned without data, or worse, came back with damaged memory cores, unable to explain what they had seen. Some described strange spatial folds, others whispered about gravitational shifts that made no scientific sense. One even returned with a single image burned into its visual log: a Craxus city floating in air, frozen mid-movement, as if time had paused and then shattered into dust. The council summoned every scientist and strategist they had, but no one could understand what had happened. Some blamed a new weapon, others blamed ancient technology buried deep in human history, and a few began to suspect the truth, that Earth had done this not out of rage, not as an act of war, but as a demonstration. While the council argued, the silence grew. Earth did not send any message, did not claim responsibility, did not appear at any emergency meetings. Their systems remained open, their trade lanes unchanged, their people calm, as if the destruction of an entire empire was simply weather passing through human space. And when questioned, their only response was a quiet, repeating phrase through diplomatic channels: "We warned you, this silence is not war." It is memory correcting itself. Inside a high-security chamber on a cold moon, orbiting a council archive world, 5 warlords from different species sat together. Each had once mocked Earth, each had once seen humans as a minor threat, each had grown rich through conquest and fear, and now each one stared at the same image, a star chart with 17 blinking red dots. Where Craxus used to be, every dot marked offline, and no signals in or out. None of them spoke for a long time, until one of them asked, "What if Earth has created something that does not fight, but removes?" And another replied, "If that is true, then we are all already dead and just waiting to find out." When the galaxy moved into a state of quiet, emergency borders were reinforced, fleets repositioned, even those who had never feared Earth before began sending peace offerings disguised as cultural exchanges. Gifts of art technology, even ancient relics stolen long ago, returned without request. Every empire remembered some past insult or encounter with humans, and one by one they erased those moments from their records, hoping the silence would not notice. Meanwhile, deep under Earth's surface, the silencers moved through old tunnels where murals told stories in shadows. Not words, each mural showing a war, each one ending not with victory, but with absence. The new generation of silencers were different, faster, sharper, still human, but refined by centuries of knowledge and purpose. They trained in artificial arenas, where gravity changed shape, where time slowed down, where emotions were tested like weapons, not to remove them, but to control them. And above them, Earth's leaders watched not with pride, but with fear, because they knew what they had done. They had created peace by holding a knife against the throat of the universe and pretending it wasn't there. In one quiet session of the council, a brave young envoy from a peaceful world asked a question none had dared speak out loud. What if we try to destroy them first? What if we gather all fleets and strike Earth before they erase anyone else? And the silence that followed was heavier than death, because the room already knew the answer, not from strategy, not from fear, but from instinct. Trying to destroy Earth now would not result in a war. It would be the end of everything. No glory, no records, no ruins, only nothing. And in that nothing, no one would remember why the galaxy once existed. So the galaxy waited for Earth to speak, for humans to explain or threaten or promise something. But no words came, only quiet activity, ships carrying water and medicine, diplomats visiting art festivals, children being born on colonies, music being shared, and still no statement on Craxus. No celebration, no mourning, only quiet repair, as if the silence had been expected, as if it had been necessary. In this stillness, the universe realized something. The humans did not go to war because they wanted peace. They stayed silent because they were still deciding whether the galaxy deserved to exist at all. And that decision was not in the hands of governments or generals. It rested in the eyes of a few who had been trained not to win, but to end. The council's last offer. The council hall had never been this quiet, not even during the collapse of the Xeran Empire or the Black Sun crisis. All across the galaxy, ships had paused. Weapons had gone cold, and voices had dropped to whispers, because the truth could no longer be denied. Earth was not just a peaceful world, it was something far more dangerous. A mirror held up to the galaxy, showing everyone what they had become and what might happen if they pushed too hard. The destruction of Craxus had confirmed the legends. Earth did not fight wars. Earth ended them completely, without warning, without fire. Just silence that fell like gravity and erased everything. Underneath now, the council had only one path left. They had to speak directly with Earth. No more envoys, no more assumptions. They had to understand the line before it was crossed again, and so they chose their best to being called. Sail from the Ithari Corps, a race known for their deep emotional sense and perfect memory. Sail had never lost a negotiation, had calmed warlords with words, and made enemies shake hands. His task was not to demand surrender or trade. He had one mission: speak with the humans, ask why, and beg for peace if needed. One mission: speak with the humans, ask why, and beg for peace if needed. Traveled alone with no escort, no weapons, his ship unarmed, his hands open. When he landed on Earth, there was no grand welcome, no guards. Just an old woman waiting at the edge of a quiet forest. She wore simple clothes, her face soft with age, her eyes filled with storms. She asked no questions, gave no instructions, only motioned him to follow, and he did, through trees and wind and light, until they reached a wide open field where children played, adults worked, and music floated in the air, as if the weight of the galaxy did not exist here. The woman sat on a wheel stone and looked at Sail, her voice quiet but firm. You want to know why we don't go to war? He nodded, and she began to speak, slowly telling a story that would never be shared again, not because it was secret, but because no one else would understand. She told him of the last war of Earth, when bombs fell every day, when air became poison, and brothers killed brothers. She spoke of the moment Earth broke, not physically, but spiritually when humans stopped believing in victory and started asking what it cost. She told them about Project Silence, how the world had created not killers but witnesses, people who saw the true shape of war and learned how to close it like a book forever. They were not machines. They were human, but they had been changed. Trained, pushed beyond limits, taught to use fear, logic, and time like tools, not to destroy lives, but to remove the need for battle altogether. They did not hate enemies. They simply did not allow them to continue existing in forms that threatened peace. Sale listened as she spoke of the vow made after the sure war, not a promise to be kind, but a promise to hold back, a decision to sleep instead of act, to heal instead of erase. But she warned him that the silence was not eternal, it was maintained. Like a wall holding back a storm, and every time someone tested Earth, they weakened that wall. She looked at him and said, "This is not about power or fear, this is about balance. We created silence because war had no more use, only consequences." Asked what would happen if someone attacked again, if another empire struck out of desperation or mistake, and her answer chilled him to the core. Then silence will speak again, and this time it will not stop, because the silencers are not bound by law. They are bound by a purpose. They do not fight to win, they fight to end cycles. They do not build prisons, they remove the need for them, and if awakened fully, they will not rest until peace is no longer a condition, but a state of reality where nothing else can grow. He tried to understand, asked if Earth feared becoming a monster, but she shook her head. We fear what we have already become, and what we might have to become again. Then she stood and began walking away, her final words spoken like a prophecy. We have given the galaxy every chance to stop testing fate. We will not give another. And with that, Sayo was returned to his ship, which lifted silently into space without fuel or flame, as if the planet itself had decided his time was over. When he returned to the council, he gave no report. He only delivered one message from Earth, handwritten in old Terran script. It read, "Peace is a gift, not a shield. We do not want to be the silence, but we will be if we must." The room fell into panic. Arguments started, but Sale remained still. He had seen the truth with his own eyes. Earth had not avoided war out of mercy. Earth had built a final response to it, a response that could not be reasoned with or undone, only respected or provoked. And somewhere far from the council chamber, in a deep black vault, another eye opened. A signal pulsed, a voice whispered through space, and a single word was spoken, not in anger, not in fear, just in quiet understanding. Ready. Why humans don't go to war. The council chambers remained dim as fear had soaked deep into the walls, and silence lingered like a shadow that refused to move. And though many species were known for their bravery, none dared speak the truth aloud that they had misunderstood Earth, not as weak, but as something ancient, something patient, something that had already bled more than any world could understand. And now, as whispers spread through the stars, the question burned in every mind, not what could humans do, but why. They chose not to do it because in a galaxy ruled by war, the single refusal to fight was more terrifying than any weapon ever forged. Some believed it was cowardice, others thought it was a clever tactic to make enemies underestimate them. But after Sale's return, no one could deny that the reason was deeper and darker than any had guessed. The humans had turned war into something else, not a tool, not a right, but a sickness, and once cured, they vowed never to catch it again, unless forced. And when forced, they did not fight with anger or revenge. They fought with precision and silence, and they never left a second chance for regret. They had become the end of war, not through power, but through understanding what war truly was and deciding they would never allow it again. Deep in the mountains of old Earth, far from cities and noise, a group of young human children sat in a circle, listening to an elder, not a soldier, not a leader, but a historian. Her name was Amara, and her eyes held the weight of thousands of years, and she spoke not of glory or conquest, but of loss. She told them how once humans had believed war was strength, that heroes were those who killed more and won more. But over time they learned that every war won Left behind broken homes, ruined minds, shattered peace, and no true victory, only the illusion of survival. She said, we don't go to war because we know what it costs, not in metal, not in land, but in what we become. We have learned that violence does not end conflict, it only delays it and teaches the next generation how to repeat it. And so we chose another path. We built silence not to hide but to heal, not to surrender, but to protect the soul of what it means to be human, because we were once monsters and it took everything in us to put those monsters to sleep, and we fear waking them more than we fear death itself. The far reaches of space, the council had one last meeting with Earth. This time they spoke with someone the humans called only the Keeper, a figure hidden behind simple robes, no name, no face, just a voice calm and soft that echoed with truth. The Keeper said, you look at us and see restraint as weakness, but it is not. We hold back not because we cannot destroy, but because we remember what it felt like to be destroyed, not just by others, but by our own hands. We built weapons that erased cities in seconds. We poisoned skies, we burned oceans, and when we finally stopped, we had nothing left except silence. The Keeper paused, then added, we do not go to war because we finally understand the weight of survival, because surviving is not winning, and because we refuse to make others carry the same scars we do. But if forced, if someone insists on dragging us back into the fire, we will not fight the way you expect. We will not send fleets or soldiers. We will end the idea of conflict in such a way that no one will want to repeat it, not because they fear us, but because they will remember what they almost unleashed. The council asked if that was a threat, and the Keeper said, no, it is a warning wrapped in mercy. We offer peace as a gift, not as a shield, except and you gain a friend, provoke us, and you awaken something you cannot reason with. And when the council hesitated, the Keeper stood and said, the last war humanity ever fought was with itself, and we buried our rage under mountains of sorrow. We became the silence because we needed to survive our own noise. Back on Earth, in the quiet fields where life moved without fear, the silencers remained asleep, not in cages or cryochambers, but in plain sight. Farming, teaching, laughing, raising children, they were not soldiers anymore. They were reminders of what could come if needed, and though they smiled like anyone else, their eyes held a depth that no alien could read, because they had seen the true cost of war and chosen never to pay it again unless someone came to collect it. And so the galaxy learned a lesson it would never forget, not through conquest or blood, but through the power of refusal, because Earth had walked through fire and returned not seeking revenge, but carrying water for others, and the silence it offered was the loudest warning of all, a silence that said, we remember what you have forgotten, we remember the end, and we choose never to start again. But if you do, we will be there, and it will end not with fury, not with hate, but with a quiet so complete the stars themselves will pause. That is why humans don't go to war, not because they cannot, not because they fear it, but because they understand it in a way no one else does, and they have become its cure and its final voice.